The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Hi everyone. The 2026 legislative session has been quite an interesting one. Joining us today is Gina Ragland, a Senior Associate State Director for AARP Nebraska. As always, you'll want to stay tuned.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. I'm Kim Hachia. On today's segment, we'll be talking about an important artist who had roots in Nebraska.
Escape, esteem, and excitement are psychological factors which motivate gambling problems. Stay tuned for an interesting discussion on how that might affect your family and for what help is available.
Spring is here, and flowers are often included in the springtime celebrations, and they always bring a smile to somebody's face. So I'm going to talk with somebody today about flowers and how they can make an immediate impact on your point of view for the day. So Stacy Griffin will be joining me, and she is from Petal Creations.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Masters and welcome to Live and Learn. We are truly pleased to have with us today Gina Ragland, the Associate Director for AARP Nebraska. She's with us today to provide updates on the 2026 legislative activities and the work of AARP in supporting caregivers. Gina Ragland, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Masters.
Oh, it's Julie. It's always a gift to have you here. Gina, I think for many of our viewers, they're familiar with your work and your advocacy. But I think for those that might be new to the Live and Learn program, and we get daily viewers, new ones every day, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about your background and your role with AARP, but also your efforts in supporting aging Nebraskans?
Absolutely. So I am Gina Ragland with AARP Nebraska. I am the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach. Primarily what I focus on is advocacy in general. We work at the local level, we work at the state level, and we work at the federal level. And primarily our mission really surrounds those that are 50 and older. However, we do a lot of intergenerational work, so especially with caregiving. We know we have sandwich generation, younger people, so we really work across the lifespan. But really my ultimate goal when I go to work every day, which mirrors a lot of what our mission is allowing Nebraskans and Americans to age in place at the lowest level of care in a setting that works best for them, while also maintaining financial security and helping them also find housing that's livable, affordable, and reliable. So again, the work that we do in all of those areas all kind of surrounds those main issues. We do a lot of other work outside of that too. But again, when we talk to Nebraskans and we poll them, 92% of Nebraskans say, I want to live in my home as long as I can. I want to age in place at the lowest level of care. And so we look at that and across the spectrum, how do we influence and make those kind of policies, keep them in place to keep people allowing them to do that?
Absolutely. Well, I know just a few months ago, both Randy Jones and Todd Stubendek were here to give us an update on Age-Friendly Lincoln. And certainly an initiative of AARP, but of Aging Partners. And so, I know the 2026 legislative session has just been action-packed, if I could use that expression. Could you share with our Live and Learn viewers the highlights that are more age-specific?
Sure, and I will just, again, very quickly, and again, you're probably seeing in the media, we are in a budget crisis. We're in the second year of our biennium, so we're trying to correct or update our budget based on what our revenues are and where we stand on that. So that's really kind of been the front and center focus of our session. We are in a short session, actually ends here in April. So 60 days is the only time period that we have. We are on day 47 of 50. Again, they have until day 50 to constitutionally adopt and pass a budget that is balanced. And I think that with the deficit that we're facing, that's a lot of the conversation that's going on. So in particular, again, our concern is when we look at the budget is ensuring that those programs and services that do affect our older populations remain at a steady funding and are not cut. Every program is at risk at this point in time because we just don't have the revenue to fill in to maintain some of those programs. So that's really been the I would say the theme of the year is the budget, because again, anything that has a fiscal note it will probably never get out of committee and be passed. So as far as new programs and expanding programs, that's really not where we're at right now. It's maintaining what we currently have and ensuring that those programs continue. Homestead exemption is still going to be funded, which is another aging in place. We have to have homestead exemption. Our area agencies on aging, God bless them, we love them. They are going to maintain stable funding at this point in time. But again, we just look at everything across the spectrum, and we're going to talk here in a little bit. Financial security is another big issue.
Absolutely.
And so we're working on some fraud initiatives that we'll be talking about here also that are important for older Nebraskans.
Gina, I'm really glad you mentioned the area agencies on aging, and when people want to age in place in their home, the AAA is critical for making that happen, and just have done an outstanding job since their inception, but continue. So, Gina, you mentioned fraud, and I think it's such an important issue to you, to AARP Nebraska, but really to all of us. Could we discuss the latest bills that are intended to protect older Nebraskans? And I think as we're doing this, we're going to see our viewers will see some slides, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to come up here, consumer fraud is a growing threat. It's a relentless threat. It's an attack on Nebraskans. It's an attack on Americans. And as I said, financial security is one of the biggest pieces of the work that we do. Again, we focus on older adults, but we know fraud isn't just for older adults. It's happening to everyone across the age spectrum. So, and you'll see up here on the screen some different statistics. These are specifically for Nebraska around the Internet Crime Complaint Center that is through the FBI. You'll see some complaints up there. But staggering numbers, $69.8 million in losses were associated with the 3,000 reported fraud crimes here in Nebraska. Again, older adults are primarily targeted, and the reason for that is they often have a nest egg. They have more money, and so fraudsters like to go after them. Younger people are actually more victims of fraud, but older adults are actually at a higher level of the losses, of course, again, with those nest eggs. So, again, I want to, before we talk about the bills, it's really important to remember, because education is really important. We now have a new logo. It's Pause, Reflect, and Protect. For people to think about when you're getting that phone call, or you're getting that text, or maybe you're on an online platform and somebody's trying to chat you up, or you're getting the phone call that's the grandparent scam, where somebody's saying your grandchild's in jail and you need to bail them out, and you need to do it now. The emotional surge, the sense of urgency, and that unexpected contact. Those are three key things that we tell people. Stop and look at that, pause, reflect on it, and then protect yourself is the big thing. That kind of came from the stop, drop, and roll concept of pause, reflect, and protect. So again, any of those tech support scams, the toll road scams, investment, we call them pig butchering. Don't like the term, but that's really what it's been labeled. Grandparent scam. And so with that, we kind of, we worked last year, and I know we talked about this, on cryptocurrency kiosk scams that were happening, and again, primarily focusing on older adults. We're able to pass some legislation on that. But in continuation of that, we have a group of people that have come together, and we call it the Fraud Free Nebraska Coalition. And you'll see up here on the screen, these are some of the members of that coalition. And it's very diverse, and it's very powerful organizations that have come together. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a lot of credit to the Nebraska Bankers Association. Really has kind of stepped up in addition to the work that AARP is doing, and I guess in addition to all these other partners to bring things to the table. And so with that, there has been legislation that's been introduced in 2026, and I'm actually really excited. A lot of these bills are moving forward, either independently or as packages. And we do have a lot of good commitment from the Nebraska legislature to work on those. So I'll run through these real quickly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but just very top level. Again, I would cue up to viewers that these are all important concepts, that if you see something that's really important to you, make a contact to your senator and ask them to support the legislation. So quickly, 785 is the first bill, and many people have probably heard of check washing before. It's another form of scam. It's been around forever, but we're actually seeing more and more of this occurring even more. Unbeknownst to me, you can go out to eBay and a fraudster can purchase a government mail key for around $15. Again, it's a receptacle key that's issued by the government, but it's actually, it's a mock-up. It's a fake key that they are now able to purchase and go out to these government-issued mail receptacle boxes, open it up from the back, and steal people's mail. And then primarily what they're doing is that check washing concept. They're pulling out your check, they're washing it, and they're rewriting it for another amount or to themselves. And so this bill actually would put into play, make it a felony if someone's caught with the intent to fraud someone of that. One note I will make real quickly for people on, if you're still writing checks, use gel pens. Don't use ballpoint pens. If you use gel, they can't be washed.
Okay, thank you.
Another bill is 838. This is a continuation of the report and hold that we worked on back in 2020 and 2021 with the bankers and the securities, where you could do a report and hold. The banks now have the ability, if I walk in and I want to withdraw money and the teller says, this seems a little bit peculiar, they can put a hold on the account or hold on the transaction while they report it and do the investigation. What is happening now is that this actually gives the banks another opportunity to expand their authorized contact program. And really what that does is it comes back and allows the banks to have a little bit more ability to do a little bit more holding, where if a person doesn't have a contact on file, they have an authorized contact list that they can go to another outside of the family or someone that is a trusted source to investigate that and stop the financial exploitation. 1082 is a bill. It is not out of committee yet. It's a good bill, but we haven't been able to move that one out. Many of you we all get the spoofing calls where somebody takes our number and we think it's someone and it's really not. So this really just establishes a further duty for telecommunications providers to protect customers from receiving those unwanted calls or texts by doing more washing of those numbers or looking at them before they pass them through. This one is a work in progress, and we'll probably see it being brought back in the next few sessions. And then just a couple more, 1118, this one is under the Uniform Deceptive Trade Practices Act. We all get on social media. We all know the platforms, and I think there are some very interesting ads out there that are actually fraudulent ads. So we have scammers who are putting ads up on social media. Maybe they're selling a puppy for $2, $20, whatever it might be, when the actual puppy probably would have cost $2,000. Really, the key here is it's too good to be true type of thing. We also have hackers that are getting into people's accounts and saying, my dad is sick, and so I'm having an estate sale and putting pictures of fraudulent or pictures of things that don't exist up. I want you to buy my pickup for a least amount of money. The other is how many of us have seen like the GLP-1 medications that are being put up on those ads. I think the concerning thing there is they're not true. They're not an active ad, and so this would actually put in where the social media companies actually have to do some investigation and posting of that. And then the last one is just another report and hold for life insurance. So it's similar to what we're doing with the banks, but for life insurance. And unfortunately, we're seeing fraudsters targeting older people again, with their life insurance policies, asking them to cash them in. And so this again puts that hold period on where the life insurance company can investigate that. So a lot of good proposals coming forward. Again, we have a good support in the legislature and excited to see those move forward.
Gina, we can't thank you enough for all your good work and your advocacy for aging Nebraskans, but it sounds like you don't have to be an older person to be taken advantage of. Gina, I have a favor. Do you think that maybe we could schedule another time down the road and talk a little bit more about things like the caregiving programs that AARP is involved in? But we only have just a little bit of time left. Update on the caregiver tax credit.
Absolutely. Again, 2025 is when this went into effect, so people are now taking advantage of that on their 2025 taxes. Again, you have till the April 15th deadline to file. It's a non-refundable tax credit up to $3,000 that people who, again, are caregivers who are contributing out of their own pocket for specific needs for someone that they're providing care for. So There are some guidelines. Again, go to the Nebraska Revenue Department's website and you can get more information. But we definitely want people, if you are a caregiver and you are providing out-of-pocket costs for different things for someone you're caring for, it is a non-refundable credit that's available.
Very good. Gina, I always ask, what gives you hope in the 2 seconds we have remaining?
What gives me hope is that the sun is shining, it's beautiful, spring is upon us. Nebraska won an NCAA tournament game.
I know, it's
Go
pretty
Big Red.
GBR. So,
Yes.
well, Gina Ragland, on behalf of the Live and Learn viewers and this wonderful production team and the folks with Aging Partners, thanks so much for your advocacy and agreeing to come back to Live and Learn. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And to our viewers, remember, it is never too late to live and learn.
My kid has been asking for this hot new gaming thing, and I was like, okay, he had a birthday coming up anyway. So I finally find the video game online, in stock. Thing is, it was from this shoddy website full of typos. That's when I remembered a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Bogus website? This is a shopping scam. Got us matching t-shirts instead.
Recognize fraud sooner,
He loves his.
so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Kim Hachia. Today we're in a temporary studio in the Aging Partners office complex on South 70th Street here in Lincoln. And so if our studio looks a little bit different today, that's why. Thanks so much to the professionals with LNK TV and Aging Partners for producing the show. And I think it's going to be a fun show today. My guest today is Steve Shively, and he's a teacher and a specialist in literature and kind of a historian at heart. And we're going to be talking about a gentleman named Aaron Douglas. So Steve, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I like to talk about Aaron Douglas.
I know you do. So I said up in the intro that we're talking about Aaron Douglas. So who is he and why is he important?
Aaron Douglas was a quite prominent artist, visual artist, paintings and illustrations. He is often called the father of African American art and was the premier artist of the Harlem Renaissance period. So he worked with many important African American people and movements.
So let's talk, what was the Harlem Renaissance? Kind of when was it and why is it so a seminal art thing in American art?
Sure. Harlem Renaissance started in the early 1920s, probably for a couple reasons. One was African American men were coming home from World War I, and they had seen a little more of the world than the rural South where they had come from. And so they migrated to the cities, but also life for African Americans in the rural South was not very prosperous. And they thought the dream of going to the city. And it wasn't just New York City, which featured Harlem, but Detroit, Chicago had powerful African American communities as well. Vibrant, rich communities of culture, music, literature, art, but also education, political movements as well.
And
it lasted until the 1930s.
Okay.
And the Depression pretty much did it in.
And Douglas worked with, when he was in New York, worked with a lot of famous other African American philosophers and leaders and politicians and
Absolutely.
Right.
People like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, James Weldon Johnson, Claude McKay, the stars of the Harlem Renaissance.
right.
And many white people were also, they were intrigued by this culture, and they would come and watch shows at the Apollo Theater and read and look at the art and the people.
Right, and I know a lot of his art at the time, it was interesting because it sort of looked like Art Deco, but also had African influences and
Yes.
lots of interesting things. I was surprised when I saw pictures that I thought it was like multimedia, but it was actually painting.
Yes.
So he had very interesting technique too. So.
His approach to modernism, and he is considered a modernist, was the blending of time periods, culture, rather than I'm painting about the Elizabethan age. But his paintings will have elements from Egypt, from Africa, as well as the future. There will be spiral type buildings going up, and they're all blended easily together.
Yeah, I know there's one painting, and I don't really know the name of it, but there's these buildings kind of in the background that one of them looks so much like the Nebraska Capitol. It's just this tall spire, and you're just like, huh. So we talked about Nebraska. So why is he relevant to Nebraskans beyond just the fact that he was a great artist?
He graduated from the University of Nebraska. He came there in 1918 from Topeka, Kansas, which isn't that big of a stretch, but Nebraska had a bachelor's degree in fine arts, and he wanted to study fine art. And apparently he was successful as a student and well accepted as a student. He was elected to the art club, which required election of the other members as well as appropriate academic standing, and he met all of those requirements. He's in the photos of the art club. His work was praised by his professors, and they helped him get jobs, and he was apparently a reasonably popular student. He lived in an African American community in Lincoln. There were a few pockets of African Americans, and he lived in the 500 block of North 9th Street, which was convenient because the railroads were near, the warehouse district of the Haymarket was near, and the Lincoln Hotel was near. Those were all places where African Americans could get jobs and work. So he lived in a boarding house there as a student, worked as a bus boy for a restaurant and a box boy for a grocery store. And the grocery store happened to be one of the manager's owners was Clyde Malone, who became an important figure in Lincoln's African American community.
Well, I know that you gave a talk that I attended, and you asked people where his presence might be, and you pointed out that there's some tablets or something outside the Malone Center in Trago Park, the old Malone Center. They're building a new one right now, but it's in Trago Park, and it talks about his influence in Lincoln.
Yes, there are several, I would call them plaques maybe, but they're large and well grounded, and you walk a trail and can see all of these plaques, and they all are illustrated on the edges with work by Aaron Douglas. And he is mentioned in one of them as well. But the more interesting thing is they feature his art as part of their decoration.
Right. So I know that apparently the Sheldon has at least one piece of his work, and I think we're seeing it here on the screen. And tell us which one is in the Sheldon.
Yes. Window cleaning on the right is in the Sheldon. The two together show his treatment of the working class. And in the 1930s, that was important in literature and art. And on the left is a worker who looks defeated. And Douglas did not really, most of his work was not in that vein, unlike, say, John Steinbeck writing Grapes of Wrath. But his work was more on the right, window washing. And that piece was purchased by the Nebraska Art Association in 1936, so fairly early. I think it is a rather positive view. The man looked strong. He's looking out the window upon the world, the emphasis on cleaning. There's a little painting. You can see the edge of a painting in the background, that art is something important as well. And that painting has been owned by the Sheldon since the Nebraska Art Association purchased it early on.
What I think is interesting about the painting is, even though it's a portrait, it's an unusual aspect because you don't really think of portraits from the back.
Yes.
But it depicts the gentleman in a context, and really it's an interesting portrait, and I'm glad the Sheldon or the Art Association purchased it, because that's they used to have these things, working from memory now, where they would have these art shows and they would bring in works by other artists. I actually think that's how they got the Hopper, the room in New York.
I believe that's right.
They had an art show, and I don't know whether there was a popular vote or why they decided to purchase, but that was one of those wow, that was a really smart thing to buy, you know,
And Aaron Douglas did have a relationship with the art department. He communicated with Dwight Kirsch, who was chair of the art department at the time, about exhibits, the purchase, jobs for graduates, and Douglas himself.
Well, after he sort of left Harlem, he went to Fisk University I think it's in Nashville.
Nashville, yes.
And headed up their art department for, I guess, until he passed away.
30 years or so before he retired, but even after retirement, he lived in Nashville and stayed there. He did a series of incredibly fine murals in what was then their library building, and they have all now been restored, and they are wonderful. Fisk University was most famous for the Fisk University singers who traveled the country making money for the university. And yes, Douglas had by then gotten a Master of Fine Arts degree from Columbia University. He'd studied in Paris, and it was a good connection for him to be there.
Well, and also prestigious for Fisk to have somebody of his stature be affiliated with their university. And
yes, he brought in people who could give talks and music performances and that sort of thing, and he made it a desirable place to go.
Right. So do we really have any idea why he came to Nebraska? Do we think it's because of the degree he could earn here?
Don't really have a definitive idea. It's possible that being from Topeka, there were relatives or other people in Topeka's African-American community who had come to Lincoln. He might have known friends here, but seems to be the art degree and that it was an emphasis in fine arts. Although the director at the time makes a point of saying that the fine arts, you could not just take courses in fine arts. You have to come out a well-educated person. And Douglas did.
Which is pretty interesting in and of itself.
Yes.
I would suppose the fine arts would have been in arts and sciences then. I don't know what the college differentiation was like back then.
And music was also part of the fine arts department, but the School of Music was somewhat separate at the time.
Yeah, and I suppose it was in the old original University Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is kind of a interesting, funky building, and, sadly no longer exists on campus.
Well, I think it was in the building that we know as Architectural Hall, which at that time was a library and also had offices and classrooms.
Oh, that makes sense, because on that, third floor, that north wing was kind of a big gallery space and had those clear story windows. So yeah, that would be a nice place to.
Many of the graduates went on to be teachers, as Aaron Douglas did. It's pretty hard to get a job that pays money as a painter right out of college. So he went to Kansas City and taught at Lincoln High School, which was a segregated African-American only high school. And the students apparently loved him, but he was only there a couple of years. But in Kansas City, he got exposed to much more of the African-American culture that he would have gotten to in Lincoln, and traveling important personages. And he may have been somewhat aggressive in meeting them, connecting to them, and they persuaded him to come to Harlem.
Right. Well, how lucky for him that he, made those connections and everything.
And in Harlem, he became more successful than many, because a lot of his work was for magazines and as illustrations for books and as murals in public buildings like libraries. So more people saw his work than if you just did a painting for some rich family that wanted it in their house.
Right. You know, Steve, we're out of time. You and I could talk about this for a long time, but, thank you for bringing your knowledge about this kind of important person that I think a lot of people don't know has a connection to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yes, he should be better known.
He should be better known, so thanks. Hopefully now he'll be like, have worldwide acclaim because he saw us on Live and Learn.
Absolutely.
So, thanks. So I want to remind our viewers that it's never too late to live and learn.
So, I'm playing with the dog, and I get this robocall from the Social Security Administration saying my card had been suspended and I had to call them back immediately. And that's when I remembered a tip from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. random robocall? This is a Social Security scam.
Recognize fraud sooner,
Robots.
so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Welcome to Live and Learn. Life changes can create vulnerability to gambling, and including the transition to retirement. I'm Doug Jost, your host of Live and Learn. Today I have the pleasure of having the Executive Director of the Nebraska Council on Gambling, Mike Chandra. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Hi, well, thank you very much for having me here today.
Before we get into the discussion deep on gambling, I think it would be good to talk a little bit about you and how you got to where you are. I mean, you're going to talk about from the heart today in terms of this isn't theory to you, this is real experience.
Yeah, it's definitely real life for me. So I have lived experience as a problem gambler in recovery myself. I've been bet-free now for a little over 5 years. My last bet was in December of 2020. And I knew that, and I went into treatment here in Lincoln through the Choices Treatment Center, which is a proud member of the Nebraska Gamblers Assistance Program. And I knew that once I started treatment and got some time bet-free, and after 25 years of addiction, that I wanted to do something more to help people out and not experience the same things that I experienced. So once I got a little ways into my treatment, I knew I wanted to get into this field. I started working for Choices after I finished treatment in education and outreach for them, and as well as a peer support specialist. And then in March of 2025, I was lucky enough to become the Executive Director of the Nebraska Council on Problem Gambling.
Well, that's very interesting, Mike, background there. Let's talk a little bit about gambling in terms of what are the signs, how would you define the problem gambling?
Well, I could give you the very clinical sort of stuff, but I like to break it down really simple. It comes down to the philosophy of live, laugh, love. So if it affects your ability to live, meaning it affects your way of life, it affects a career, it affects you financially, then it could be a problem. If it affects the way you laugh, meaning the way your emotional health, your mood, your depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. If it affects that, then it could be a problem. If it affects your love, affects your ability to have relationships, whether they're romantic, whether they're with friends or family, if it affects any of those, then it could be a problem. Because at the end of the day, it truly comes down to just lies and limits. If you have to lie about your behavior and you can't set those limits, it's definitely a problem.
Then what are situations that you see that lead to these problems? What would you cite as maybe a major problem?
The biggest thing I see is it comes down to chasing, which the concept of chasing is that you are trying to win back money that you've previously lost, and then you go over your limits by doing that. So you might have really good limits going into a trip to the casino or doing something on your phone or whatever your gambling mode might be. You might have those limits set, but then once you start losing your money and you lose that money, you keep going back and back for more because your brain is telling you that you must get that money back that you previously lost.
One of the things that I've heard you talk about is the relationship in terms of addiction with, say, chemical addiction, and how gambling affects us psychologically. Is similar?
Yeah, and that's what people don't necessarily think about, is the fact that the brain chemistry is affected by gambling in a lot of the same ways that it is with substances. People think that since you're not putting a substance in your body that it doesn't affect your brain chemistry. Well, that's definitely not true. With all sorts of gambling, it involves dopamine hits. Whether it's a large dopamine hit with, like, say, a sports bet or a poker game, or smaller dopamine hits in front of a slot machine, that constant action there. That all affects your brain and affects your brain chemistry. And in fact, the brain, they've done studies where they've scanned the brain of a gambler next to a brain of a person on cocaine. And the very similar parts of the brain light up from the same activity and the same chemicals.
That's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about retired people. I mentioned that in my opening. And what are the risks in terms of people my age and maybe maybe not quite as old, but people into retirement?
It's a twofold concern because it has to do with your own behavior and then your support of others who might have similar behavior. So for the older adult, I mean, you might be at retirement age where you have more time on your hands. You don't have the same social group you've had in the past, so there might be some loneliness there. There might be some boredom there. There might be some lack of excitement. And gambling feels like a way to kind of replace that. And that's how things can get out of control really quickly. Now, on the other side of it, you have anybody wants to support their family members, especially sons, daughters, grandkids, that sort of thing. And some of them might be struggling as well. Well, the first thought is you want to support them financially, and if they come to you with a problem, you want to fix that problem. But if they're gambling, if they have a concern with their own gambling, they could take advantage of an older adult with asking for money and taking advantage of what funds that they have.
One of the other risks in getting into gambling is suicide. Is there? You find a correlation between problem gambling and suicide?
Absolutely. And in fact, problem gambling is the highest addiction, has the highest rate of suicide amongst all addictions. Nearly 1 in 5 people who are considered problem gamblers have attempted suicide. So 20% of people, that's a huge number.
It is, yeah.
And if you think about it from a fact of, not only is it affecting you emotionally, but it's also affecting your finances as well too. And especially for older adults who lived on a fixed income, who might be dealing with other struggles as well too, they might feel a huge lack of hope to a place where it gets to a place where it might not be bearable anymore.
Is this sort of across all age spectrums, the relationship here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, the financial piece affects everyone at different ages and where they're at, but that level of hopelessness, the level of stigma there goes along with it no matter what the age, because you're not putting a chemical in your body, so people are less likely to understand. They think that gambling is just a bad habit. At the end of the day, it is a diagnostic disorder, just like substance use disorder or anything else within the DSM-5.
Let's talk a little bit about what are some red flags that you see that might indicate problem gambling.
The biggest ones we see are changes in behavior. So you see somebody who you used to spend a lot of time with and now they're not spending as much time with you, or they're doing things, they might be stuck on their phone all the time. Or especially if it comes to finances, they might start talking more about money and start really being hyper-focused on money, because at the end of the day, money is the tool that is used in order to get their fix, to get their high for a problem gambler. So they want to make sure they have that source of money around all the time. Change in finances in general, where they start asking you for money or start borrowing money. It's really, those are the kind of things we notice. In fact, a lot of times in treatment, we have the significant others of the gambler come to us and think that their significant other is cheating on them because they're spending so much time away. Their focus is so much different than it's been in the past, that they think that those changes in behavior are actually a sign of infidelity versus a sign of problem gambling.
When you work one-on-one with people, sort of where do you start? I mean, with somebody that might have a problem. How do you get involved with them?
The best thing to do, we do a lot of interventions as far as family goes. So family members will come to us. And the first thing that we ask them is if they can possibly, or if we have to get involved, to give them a screening. So screening is key, just like with a lot of other health concerns or anything else. And there's one main screen out there. It's called the Brief Biosocial Gambling Screen. It has 3 yes/no questions, all within the past year. The first question is, are you restless or irritable when you're trying to cut back on gambling? The second question is, have you tried to hide any gambling expenses or lied to anyone about it? And number 3, have you had such financial trouble that you've needed to borrow money or use other financial instruments?
So those are pretty simple questions that they get right to the center of the problem.
Yeah, it's simple and to the point. If you answer yes to any of those 3, it's not necessarily a diagnosis, but it's a good place to start from there to go on and move on to maybe considering treatment from there.
Mike, let's go to the other side, talk about what help is available. And you maybe talked a little bit about your situation and how you interact with people, but what help is available for people?
The great thing about the state of Nebraska is that we have absolutely free and absolutely confidential treatment available for a problem gambler through the Nebraska Gamblers Assistance Program. That money that fund comes from a little bit of money from the casinos, a little bit of money from the lottery, a little bit of money from other legal gaming in the state, and goes into a pot that provides free outpatient treatment for the person that's struggling, as well as their loved ones and family members as well too. So that is completely free. The best way I tell people to find that information is to reach out to the Nebraska Problem Gambling Helpline, and that number is 1-833-BET-OVER, 1-833-238-6837.
And this is a state or a state organization or a state agency, really.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's provided through the Nebraska Commission on Problem Gambling, which is the state agency I kind of work hand in hand with. But that money has been there since the early 90s when the lottery came to the state. So it's something that's been around for 30 years, but a lot of people don't know about it. And that's a lot of my role, is letting people know about those resources that are available.
And letting people feel comfortable going to that. Any key points there that you would recommend?
I just want to tell people that no matter what, that there is help and that there is hope. Whether you're the person who's struggling or you're the family member or loved one of someone who's struggling, I thought for the longest time that there was no hope for me out there whatsoever. Right. And with these resources that are there, you're not alone, or that person's not alone in their struggle. They can recover and they can do great things beyond this in their lives.
Mike, thank you very much for visiting with us today and sharing your own personal experience. And we hope that if anybody that has a problem or a family member, that they access the help that's available. So thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate being able to share some of my story and some of my resources that are available out there. So thank you.
Remember, it's never too late to live and learn about problem gambling and how it might affect you and your family.
I was doing some shopping and got a pop-up on my laptop. Computer had a virus. So I called the number on the page, and the guy on the phone wants to take control of my screen to sort it out. Then I remember a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Control my screen. This is a tech support scam. Thankfully, my order still went through.
Recognize fraud sooner so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
I'm so pleased to welcome Stacy Griffin today. She's the owner of Petal Creations, a floral shop, and she's also a designer. And I've long admired her designs. And since spring is here, we wanted to talk about flowers and the power of the petal. So Stacy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the floral design business.
Well, I moved to Nebraska in 1998, but before that, my family has had a greenhouse and a flower shop in Topeka, Kansas, where I was born and raised. So I have been in the floral business from the get-go. And I've always admired it, loved it, and when I had the opportunity in 2005, I opened a shop here in Lincoln.
So how long have you been here in Lincoln?
Since I moved to Lincoln in 2000.
Oh, just then.
And I moved, and then I was able to open the shop in 2005. So.
Oh, good for you, good for you. Well, I've always loved your stuff. So because you do things so differently, and that's what I like. I always like different. So I know flowers, we had originally started this back in Valentine's Day, and then things came up. So tell us, what types of flowers, they all look beautiful. But what do flowers give to the person either receiving or giving the flowers?
Well, I think in the world that we have today, the one that we have to maneuver and be in, flowers make us feel seen. They make us feel appreciated. They make us feel loved, and I think that that's important.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is directed a little bit towards seniors. I know when I used to work in a senior community with flowers came in, everybody ran to the front and wanted to see who the flowers were for. So I imagine that kind of gives a bonding idea, either for neighbors or family members or something like that.
Absolutely. People love to see others being appreciated, and they love to look at them. They love to smell them. They love to touch them.
And I've never seen anybody receive flowers that didn't get a smile. Or do smile, because I think they make you feel less depressed because they're so pretty. And most flowers will last a while, we hope. Or a plant. Do you see a difference between actual flowers or plants given? Is there a difference in that, you think?
I think people give plants because they want to make sure that they're getting a good value and that they last a long time. But the beauty of fresh flowers is they're not supposed to last. I mean, that's kind of the message I would like people to understand. They're really an in-the-moment gift.
That's a good way to put
And
it.
they're not necessarily supposed to last forever.
So in your home, when you receive the flowers, you know, I would imagine most people either put them in the living room where people can admire them, or in their bedrooms so they can enjoy them first thing in the morning. Do you ever get a response on how, from when, of course, you're probably on the, when people come in, they're going to give them. Do they ever mention where, or is it always a great occasion? I know sometimes it's a sad occasion, but do they, I guess, do they really specify which one, or they leave it up to you?
Oftentimes people are sending flowers for a feeling or an emotion or a holiday or an occasion, like a birthday, I'm sorry, I love you, thinking of you, good job. Those kinds of emotions are what people buy flowers for and give flowers for.
So, we had talked earlier about most people call in now, they don't come in, but you can help direct them. So if it's friendship, isn't it a yellow rose or something like that? Or and it's something, a red rose means something different than a white rose?
It does, but you know, the truth of the matter is yellow roses mean friendship and jealousy. So, I mean, you can use those flowers for anything.
Okay, you can't go wrong, yeah. Multi-purpose.
Exactly.
You know, well, my favorite flower is red tulip. I've always loved red tulip, so that's my flower. So do you think men react differently than women? I would imagine men are more surprised when they get a flower.
You know, the studies will say that most men only get flowers at their funeral. That we don't give flowers to men because they're not deemed manly as a gift. But most men who receive flowers quietly appreciate them.
Well, I would think they'd be very flattered because it would be unexpected.
Yes.
I would imagine. My husband would just be floored if I sent flowers because he's very good about sending me stuff, but I've never done that. So, so do you see any difference between younger people receiving or giving flowers as opposed to older people receiving or giving?
I don't think so. I mean, your heart is your heart. And we all want to be loved, and we all want to be appreciated, and we all want to be seen no matter what our age is.
Well, yeah. So in studies, they show that it reduces depression a lot of times in older people. And it gives, like I said, when the flowers come into a senior community, the companionship just blooms around that. So,
yes.
So do people, I imagine they specify if it goes to a dining room table or if it's just going to go, do they get that specific sometimes?
No, usually only if it's for like a centerpiece for a holiday. But mostly, mostly the giver has an expectation of the size of the design and the style of the design. And really they're giving it based on their preference more than the person receiving the flowers.
Well, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
So they're trying to convert them.
They'll say, I like a this. And then you'll say, that's fine, I can make that for you. And because oftentimes we don't know what the person receiving them really likes. So we want it to be an expression of our personality to them.
So do you, when on the phone call or when they come in, do you delve into a little bit about the person receiving it so you can taper it a little bit?
I really try to be your personal florist as opposed to just somebody taking a floral order. There's a lot of questions that go into the ordering process that help me create something specific and unique for the person receiving the flowers.
So, so I imagine, you know, if you receive flowers, you're happy. It, you know, as we said, it reduces depression. They're happier, and you're happier. You're healthy. You're more healthy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you're happy. So I've noticed one thing I admire about your designs is you do a lot with greenery as well. You know, the bending the leaves and that sort of thing. Do people appreciate that, or do they like the more traditional in a vase?
No, pretty much when you order something from Petal Creations, you understand that we're not going to send something out that you're going to get from just everybody. And so oftentimes they say, just do you, Stacy, just do you, because I don't know what that is, but I like it. So just do you.
So that tells me you have a lot of repeat business.
A lot of repeat business. A lot of I mean, and I think that's the unique difference between our shop and some of the other shops. We want to be your personal florist, so I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are and what you like to send, so that when you call in, I had a lady call me. She calls me every year and orders flowers for her daughter for her birthday, and she trusts me now. And the conversation is more like, it's time for her daughter's birthday. I need to send flowers on Monday, and just do you.
So I was just thinking out loud there. Does she keep track of what she sent the year before, so you'd always have something different, or does it matter?
No, I don't really keep. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff. I rarely do the same thing twice. I rarely do that. So we've never run into that where they got the same arrangement twice.
So as I started, we were talking, we started this conversation at Valentine's Day and things came up. So I imagine as we're taping this now in late March, the next holiday will be Easter and Easter lilies. But what comes after Easter? Is there holidays that people specifically go to flowers for?
We go right to Mother's Day.
Oh, that's true.
And that is a big holiday. It's also different because mostly women are the ones ordering the flowers for Mother's Day, whereas Valentine's Day, it's mostly men ordering the flowers. So the experience is a little different, and it's fun to talk to women about their moms and their grandmas and their aunts and those people who act as a mom. And
well, I will say my daughter-in-law gets flowers for me more than my son does, so I will agree to that. So yeah,
See?
She's very good at that.
Yes.
So what's your favorite flower to work with?
To work with, I think roses are probably really my favorite.
I would never have guessed that with all the things you do.
I would, because they can be manipulated. You can roll the petals. You can bend the petals. They can be focal. You can make them a focal area in a design. You can use them as a line flower, and smaller roses you can use as filler flowers. So they're very universal flower. I know people don't like to hear this very much, but I think the carnation is undervalued. We don't use them a lot because I'm like most people, I don't like fanning carnations. But
what do you mean fan?
Well, where they're really seen as the flower they are instead of the texture that they should be used for. So a lot of times you can bury a carnation deep into a design to give that depth of color. So there are some carnations that have a color like purple, for example. There are some amazing purple carnations on the market. Carnations smell great, they last a long time, but they're underused because we in our industry kind of abused them, and we gave a bad vibe to them years and years ago.
There's always a
and people say, I don't like carnations.
So what is your favorite flower? Just in general.
Honestly, like you, I love a tulip. My favorite is a white tulip. I love tulips because they're one of the only flowers after they are cut, they continue to grow. They move, they manipulate themselves in the design, they open to the sun, they close to the cool air, and so they're constantly changing, kind of like me.
I don't know. No, so it also, when you're talking about flowers, but people are getting into the yards now. Do people bring flowers from their yard into you to work into a design?
They do not.
They don't?
No.
I know you don't really like that, but I wonder if they did anyway.
I don't take steak into a steakhouse and have them cook it either.
Okay, good analogy.
But I do have people bring their own containers in. And I'm absolutely welcome to that, because people will have a vase that somebody gave them as a keepsake or something, and they want something designed in it. So I'm happy to do that. If they have a little, I call it roadsidea, like a bush or a twig or something that they want worked into a design, that's perfectly fine.
So what's the most unusual thing you've done? Can you think off the top of your head?
Unusual? I think probably sympathy work is probably the most unusual, when a client will allow me to represent the person in a floral design. I did a little boy's funeral several years ago, and we incorporated crayons and paintbrushes and things like that because he was quite an artist. And so anytime you can represent the person in the design, that's always an honor.
So I would have thought, going back a bit, your bird of paradise, because I see so many bird of paradise as you do. But is there anything else we should know that you can tell us about flowers with all the springtime coming up? And you know,
I think to your point, the fact that it's springtime, go cut them in your garden. Bring them into your home. I mean, you're not going to hurt them. In fact, it encourages blooming again and blooming more if you cut them from your garden. I bring lilacs into my house. I bring gladiolas into my house. I plant flowers in my pots and bring them into my house because I love coming downstairs in the morning and looking at that beautiful little flower arrangement. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be just a little bit of something.
Like this.
Absolutely. It just makes my heart happy.
Good. Well, thanks for coming in today. I thought it'd be just a different kind of topic, so I appreciate you coming in today.
Yes, well, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And please tune in again when we have other topics of interest for people. And remember, it's never too late to live and learn.